All right, so when I'm looking at my house, I have no idea why I started building it so it's floating off that bottom plane, off the ground surface. So first thing I'm going to do is move it down. Eventually, when you get to creating your ground, basically all you're going to do is create a polygon plane. And you're going to add a bunch of subdivisions to it so you can sculpt it. And it is created on that ground surface. So rather than having to move this up to meet your house, you might as well build everything on that ground. So I'm going to go into front view. You can go into any of the side views. And I'm going to select by verts. No, I don't want to do that yet. I want to move the whole thing down close to that line. And then, because I don't really care, it's close enough. It's not going to move that much. I'm going to zoom way in, hold down X, and snap it to my grid. So now my house should be sitting on that ground plane. There, that looks good. The next thing, if I'm looking at reference images, I downloaded a bunch of images of chimneys. Okay? And there's all different kinds, guys. You have to make your own decision on what you want to build. But remember, you have to have a chimney in your model. So I'm looking at this ugly CG one here. What I started really looking at is whether or not the chimney is inside of the overhang of the roof or outside of the overhang of the roof. And most chimneys are outside of that overhang. If you look at this one, that's outside of the roof. This one's outside of the roof. This one is inside of the roof. You can do any of them, right? It doesn't really matter. But I also noticed that houses that are built up, like mine is, I'm going to have a couple steps coming down. Houses that are built up have like a foundation around the bottom. So if you look at my house right now, the geometry, I have nothing. So I'm going to reintroduce a tool to you that I've found over the years to be very useful, and that's the multi-cut tool. You might want to add that to your shelf. Go to Mesh Tools, Multi-Cut if you don't have it. It looks like an X-Acto knife. And we've already used this tool a little bit, but I want to explain probably one of the best features of this tool is I need an edge loop basically all the way around the bottom here. And I want to start where I'm going to start that step so it looks correct. Okay, so this corner here all the way around. I'm going to turn my symmetry on so it'll save me some time. And I'm going to start by clicking on this sort of diagonal edge here and go all the way down past where I want that starting vert to go. And it stops where it meets a vertex. And then over here, a couple of things. When I left click, hold, and start dragging up, you can see percentages, which is nice. If I hold down shift, this is the important part. So turn your memory banks on. If I hold down shift, it'll jump to 10% intervals. The better one for this, because if I go to 40 and 30, it's not straight across, right? It's not perfectly horizontal. You can see that there's a little bit of diagonal in that edge. To get it to go straight across at a 90-degree angle, if I hold down Control and Shift, you'll see that little sort of universal geometry symbol of a right angle, right? You guys familiar with that? See that green line? That means we're at 90 degrees. And I let go and I move on to the other one. Left click, hold, then I hold down Control Shift, and we go 90 degrees. So I can do that all the way around until it meets in the back, hopefully. Be careful with this. Really pay attention to where you're. Almost looks like I added another vert there. Maybe I did. We'll see what happens afterwards. So I'm going all the way around. Control Shift. Control Shift. Control Shift. And then I'm going to enter that. Hit enter on that. Take my symmetry off. And then I'm just going to meet these two because there is not a center going all the way around. Now I want to do a slight extrusion because a lot of the foundations sort of are this like cement that pop out by a couple of inches. So I want to select all those faces that were just created. I did create an extra vert there on accident. So I'm just going to delete that one. I selected it and hit backspace. Now I'm going to go to my front view. Go to face selection mode. Excuse me. Select that whole area. Right, I drag selected more than I need. Right now I know I have that whole loop of faces all the way around. If But I also have the faces at the bottom of my house, which I don't want because I'm going to do an extrusion here that I think will work. I haven't tested it yet. So I have all my bottom faces as well. So we want to deselect those before we do the extrusion. So I just go to my top view, hold down Control, drag a box around all those faces. Now I should only have that loop all the way around. Now hopefully if I do an extrude and I pull out in Z, they'll all go out a little bit in the same direction. It gets a little bit messy down here, but I can clean that up later. So now I've got this little foundation all the way around my house. And then, before I let you go, the last thing is a chimney, and the chimneys are very easy. I'm just going to create a cube. My cube has these settings in it, the default settings for when we built the house, so it looks really awful. That's fine. I'm going to move it up so that the base matches the bottom of the wall. Again, if I go to front mode or front view, select my verts, hold down X to snap to that bottom. It's perfect. Now I can get out of component mode. And I can scale this to whatever I want by hand. You can do it by channel box or attribute editor. I want my base of my chimney to be something like that. And again, if you notice with the references, you have sort of this thicker base that goes up, sometimes halfway. Where that starts to incline, I have no idea what the rule is, if there's some sort of rule for that, so you could do whatever you want, right? I'm looking at about maybe halfway up. So I'm going to, rather than scale this down, because I know that if I scale it down, what happens to my bottom? Now it's off the ground. So I'm going to grab just the top verts, move them down to about where I want to start that, maybe up a little higher. And then I can scale in Z to get the thickness I want, maybe a little more. Now I can move it, and I'm going to have this chimney stick outside of my roof just to make things easier. And again, because this isn't going to be a functional house, right? So we can sort of cheat a little bit. We don't actually have to cut that roof off and fit that chimney up in there nicely. We can just like sort of shove it in there, make it look like it's correct. So now I'm going to extrude the top. And if I scale it from the side, I get that little peak. And then I extrude again, all the way up through. It doesn't matter how high you go. Now I want to create a hole in the top, right? So I can let the smoke out. Extrude again. Now I scale from the middle to create those bricks. Extrude again. Push that down so it looks like maybe from the outside looking in we have a hole. In case the camera comes up here, we go, oh yeah, we have smoke can get out of there. Although if we look inside, don't worry about it. Your camera at the end of the day is going to be somewhere around here. So at least make it look like there's a little hole up there. So pretty simple stuff. Chimney and foundation.